Question 3. Hugo recorded the purchases of 80 customers in the ladies' fashion department of a large store, and his results are as follows. 20 customers will need to be in the coat section. 12 customers bought a coat and a scarf. 23 customers bought a pair of gloves. 13 customers bought a pair of gloves and a scarf. Now, unusually, no customer bought a coat and a pair of gloves, which means that coat and gloves sections do not overlap. 14 customers did not buy a coat, nor a scarf, nor a pair of gloves. So they're the people outside of the circles. So then it says, part A, draw a Venn diagram. So I'm going to draw the Venn diagram like this, that we have a coat section. Coat comes up first, so let's record this. Then we've got people buying coats and scarves. So they're going to need an overlap section. Now you've got no people buying a coat and gloves. But is there anything about scarf and gloves? Yes, scarf and gloves does have an overlap section. So that means I'm going to put gloves over here and then box this off. Now, you often record S here for sample space, but because I've used S for scarf, I'm actually just going to write sample space instead. Okay, let's start putting the information in. Starting from here, 12 customers bought a coat and a scarf. 12. 13 customers bought a pair of gloves and a scarf. 14 customers did not buy a coat or a scarf or a pair of gloves. Back up to the top, 20 customers bought a coat. So if this is going to be 20, then I need to put 8 in here. 23 customers bought a pair of gloves. 13 of them are in there, so if I put 10 here, that will be 23 altogether. And no customers bought a coat and a pair of gloves. I've already covered that by not overlapping these sections. And I can find this missing number by knowing that the total of the customers was 80. And subtracting out everything else. So that's take away 14, 8, 12, 13 and 10. That leaves 23 who only bought a scarf. Let me just check that. So that would be 14 from the outside, 20 from this circle, 23 from the middle, and 23 from the right hand side. It's making 80. Okay, good. Now, there was another way that you could answer this question. You might have launched in by drawing 3 circles, and when you found out that there was nobody who bought coats and gloves, you could put zeros in these sections. This is also fine, but I prefer this one because I think it more clearly shows the relationship between the 3 different things. So that's part A. Part B, one of the 80 customers, so someone from inside here, is selected at random. And part I says, find the probability that the customer bought a scarf. So that is all of these people in the scarf circle. That's 12 and 23 and 13 out of the total of 80. If they pick any of those people, then they found someone who bought a scarf. So that was 48 out of 80, or 3 out of 5, or 0.6. Part 2. Given that the customer bought a coat, find the probability that the customer also bought a scarf. So this is find the probability of buying a scarf given that the customer bought a coat. So if the customer bought a coat, that puts you in this section. It narrows you down to 20 of the customers. And if you're in the coat section, the people from the coat section who go on to buy a scarf as well, there are 12 of them. So that's 12 over 20, or 6 over 10, or 0.6 again. Part 3. State giving a reason whether or not the event that the customer bought a coat and the event that a customer bought a scarf are statistically independent. So I would say that because the probability of buying a scarf is not affected by knowing that somebody bought a coat, the events S, so here when I wrote S equals scarf, I mean that's a bit of a shorthand. S is really a customer bought a scarf. That would be the full definition of S. So this is a bit shorthand to write this. The events S and C are statistically independent. So I checked the mark scheme and they are happy with the notation of S and C. So that's absolutely fine. Now, Hugo had asked the member of staff selling coats and the member of staff selling gloves to encourage customers also to buy a scarf. By considering suitable conditional probabilities, determine whether the member of staff selling coats or the member of staff selling gloves has the better performance at selling scarves to their customers. Give a reason for your answer. So if we think about what they're asking us, they're saying, does going to the coat section, or what effect does going to the coat section have on the sales of scarves, compared to what chance does going to the gloves section have on the sale of scarves? So if we work out both of these probabilities, we can see whether coats or gloves sales, which one of those is having the bigger effect on sales of scarves. So we already worked out the top one was 0.6 in the previous part. So if we work out this one, given that we're in the gloves department, so there were 23 people who went to the glove section, what was the chances that they went on to buy a scarf? Well, 13 of those people did so. So that gives us 13 out of 23, which is, okay, so there's no need to wait. So this is 0.5652 and so on. So looking at these two probabilities, it would suggest that the gloves sales the member of staff selling coats is doing a slightly better job at persuading sales of scarves than the person who sells gloves. Having said that, these probabilities are quite close together, and of course some of these customers may have gone to scarves first and then happen to later go to gloves, and now, or happen to later go to coats, and now those gloves or coats people could sort of be taking credit for those sales. Nevertheless, the question doesn't ask for anything that in depth. It doesn't ask about backing up, you know, what could be wrong with your reasoning or anything like that. So they will really just be looking for the statement that the probability that you buy a scarf given that you'd bought a coat is greater than the probability that you buy a scarf given that you bought a pair of gloves. And we can conclude the member of staff selling coats is doing a better job. Now, how did they word it in the question? Of selling scarves to their customers.